Hello, everyone. It's been a while since Kyle and I have been on one of these. Thanks for joining us. So this is basically, there's a lot that goes into eBird review, as Ann alluded to, and we're going to touch on quite a few things, kind of revisit some things throughout the presentation, and we will still have dozens of other things that we're not even going to get to talk about. So we're going to try our best to explain how we review records through our eyes. It's going to be hopefully foster some good conversation and some good questions. So here we go. Who we are. As Ann said, we are eBird volunteers. We're also employed. I'm a wildlife biologist for New York City DEP and also president of Putnam Highlands Audubon Society, amongst a list of other volunteer things that I participate in. Kyle, senior civil engineer now at Labella, and he's also on the board for Putnam Highland as well. I live in Westchester. I live up in Somers, and Kyle lives in Dutchess County. Was this you, Kyle?
You were going to do this one, Sean.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So, as Ann also said, we are part of a volunteer team, emphasis on the word volunteer. And I plucked a couple quotes from eBird's website. I even hyperlinked them too, that just emphasize eBird's appreciation for the work the reviewers do, but also letting folks know that we are also volunteers. And while we try our best to get your rare sightings or flag sightings pushed through the queue and into the database, sometimes it's not that easy. Life gets in the way. We're also birders too. So especially this time of the year, sometimes things go to the back burner because we're outside birding as well. So the volunteer team for this region consists of Rich Guthrie. He's Region 9 and the Capital Region, and probably other areas. John Haas, he's specifically Sullivan, Orange, and Ulster counties. And then Zach Schwartz-Weinstein, who reviews Rockland County along with the Capital Region. And then Kyle and I, we take care of Region 9, so Ulster, Dutchess, Orange, Putnam, Rockland, and Westchester. So it's a lot of territory to cover, a lot of birds being seen, a lot of birders especially, veteran and new. There's new names coming up every day. And a lot of people travel through this area, whether it's for leisure or traveling elsewhere upstate. If you're coming from the city or Long Island, you got to pass through the Hudson Valley. So, and if you're birding, you usually make a stop somewhere. So we see a lot of records and a lot of stuff comes through.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I think it's really important to note that we're not the only eBird reviewers in Region 9. Over the past 5-6 years, it's kind of come to everyone's opinion that we're the ones that do all the confirming, unconfirming, follow-up. But every once in a while, you will see some things that will get confirmed in the queue that are not from me and Sean. There's various other people that also have abilities to review things in Westchester. In addition to that, it's not just the reviewers that actually do all of the work. eBirders also have some power in their tools. So if you submit over 100 lists a year, eBird allows you to do a quasi QA/QC. There's an image at the bottom of this slide with a mourning dove and a root-throated hummingbird. You may have noticed the flag on the right side of that snippet. So if you submit over 100 eBird checklists a year and someone puts up a species that you don't think is right, or if there's a picture that is incorrect, you can click on that flag and put up, basically it's like a notion that would come to me and Sean saying that someone thinks that this picture is off or this species is wrong. Not only do we rely on people from eBird, a lot of times we'll get text messages or phone calls or emails with a checklist and saying, hey, what do you think of this? Or did you see this? Or how did this get by? So we really rely on a lot of input from the public and our friends and everyone on this chat here to kind of do our job and help the whole community of eBird.
And some of those other reviewers that Kyle's talking about, it's, eBird Central can literally review the whole world. Some folks, maybe Andy Guthrie for a local name, local-ish name, They have statewide review power, so they can see everything in the state. So there's just a lot of there's probably a bunch of people that we don't even know about that can look at sightings in the Hudson Valley.
So we tried to throw in a little bit of humor into this presentation as well. Larry, who I don't think is on, loves calling us the eBird Police. Even before I was a reviewer, I referred to it as the eBird Police. And people just need to understand that we're not here to punish people or anything like that. We are solely trying to maintain eBird's database and trying to have as much solid and useful data as possible in the database. So it's our job to QA/QC, follow up. It's not a power trip. We're not eBird reviewers because we're better than everyone else. We've volunteered to have those hard conversations with people to try and strengthen eBird's data.
So that database that we're alluding to is this page that we all visit probably more times than we should. Unhealthy amounts given the time of the year. So you type in your species and it'll show you in real time where in the world the species is being seen. So when we approve a record, it goes into this database, and therefore everyone in the world can see it. So just again, emphasizing what it's not about your personal year lists, life lists, county lists, none of that stuff. We care what goes into this.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Sean, this community here, everyone on this chat is really heavily invested in the local birding scene. So I've noticed that other people also get really into what birds are around and what birds are in their hot spots, and also can flag things when they see things in what is their local patch. So we're just trying to be the QA/QC for the overall community.
So you guys are just showing, we're just showing the slide that
Yeah, I meant to do this. Sorry. There we go. Got it.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
Good.
so this is the database that we're in charge of maintaining. So I just clicked in solitary sandpiper, a bird that's kind of everywhere right now. This is what we care about right now. So what birds are being seen, and that in real time, not again on your life lists or your year lists, that kind of stuff. So on a more granular level, see like August, northern pintail's not really in this state just yet, but they will be here soon enough. And it's sightings like that, one comes up, we have to vet it to make sure, it's good to be presented here for everybody else to see, because other folks use this data. I'm not going to go do it now, but you click, just explore this science page on eBird, and this gives you this is all of our data. Our sightings go into all of this work. So that's again why we do this. We said we don't care about really the who when it comes to the sightings. It's the what, where, and why. So what triggers a review? Well, all this box on the top right, that is what we're all used to seeing. Whether we groan or get excited when we have to do something like this, that is a personal preference. But that means you have to enter some documentation. And what does that mean? That means you either saw a high count for a species, a rare species sighting. There could have been a misidentified photo, audio, and also a common but out of place species for a specific location. That is something that is not really what Kyle was saying, how we get texts or emails or phone calls from folks saying, hey, did you see this? That kind of falls under that criteria there, because it's not necessarily something that's rare. It's just why, like, I'm trying to think of an example right now. I don't know, like an American oyster catcher anywhere in Putnam County kind of thing. Or no, inland Westchester County. There we go. That's a good one. Only seen on the coast, but what's it doing on the Hudson River kind of thing. In Chrome Point, let's say. That kind of situation. Or out of season species, whether that's an early or lingering migrant, Blackpool warblers. That's a popular one that people start getting fed up seeing rare bird alerts for in October and November, as they're still kind of taking their time going south. Anything else, Kyle?
Yeah, I think to kind of add on to some of the frustrations. So, every once in a while, purple finches will have a banner year where purple finches are everywhere in the county. And then there's other years where they really don't erupt down into the southern New York. And so we'll set that for rare to make sure that we find any of these sightings coming in because of species like house finch that are easily misidentified. The only other thing I was going to add, Sean, is sometimes, Sean and I are actively updating the filters. So the way that these birds and the rare birds work is there's a date where it gets set for these birds to become rare or not rare. So for that being said is Cape May warbler. And June and July is going to be rare in Westchester. And somewhere at the end of August, they start to show up. So sometimes just because it's not rare when you enter it, it might be right on that cusp of a weird time that you might still get an email from us, even though when you put in your checklist, it won't show up as rare because of that aspect of out of season.
Yeah, we're going to mention it a little later, but things like climate change, it's always going to be pushing the bar, right? So birds might be leaving a little earlier to head south. Birds might be getting here earlier. So that bar is always going to be changed. So, if we email you because you had something that's, like Kyle said, K-May warbler that everyone here knows what it looks like. And, don't get offended because, if, you send us back a picture and that bird's like a week early, and then so that's a data point. So maybe if this happens for another couple of years, maybe we push the bar again. So like maybe mid-August is when K-May warblers start showing up, kind of thing. So again, it's not to really question you. It's kind of we have to look at the big picture. So high counts. We'll just go over what that means. So we've all seen that symbol up there, a yellow highlighter with the exclamation point. And all we got to say is that these descriptions or justifications, if you will, don't have to be super elaborate. They can be very short, to the point. They don't have to be these long, drawn-out things. Things like counted, many around, and everywhere. They don't really help us see how you arrived at that number. And I mean, we've done it. We do it all the time where we just kind of, you see a flock of birds, you're like, yeah, that looks good for about 500 kind of thing. It's sort of a shoot from the hip approach. And that's all right. That's acceptable means of doing things. And, if you say that, there's no shame in it. But other things to think about were the birds moving in one direction, enabling you to count them individually as they passed. Did you count them in blocks, loose groups? Did you count them one by one, fives, tens, hundreds? If they were geese, let's say, something large where you see them naked eye, were you counting birds migrating along a large expanse of water, so using a scope or your binoculars? Or you're at your favorite patch and it's either a loop or an in and out, and you counted all the birds individually in one direction as you went through there. Just very simple ways to describe that. I know it can get frustrating, but again, it's not asking a whole lot. The rare species, this is what everyone gets excited about. So there's different tiers to this. It's rare for the country, rare for the state, rare for the county, and rare for a specific area. So something like, I think American oystercatcher on the Hudson River is another very good one on the Westchester side, not on Rockland. And we'll get to that a little later. What makes a species rare? Lingering or early migrant, a vagrant, so truly like a painted bunting, rare for a specific location, inland terns, sea ducks, shorebirds. Spinny guy there, and Kyle?
Sure. So, how to properly document a rarity, written descriptions. So, this is something that we try and really hammer down on all of the local birders. It's something that we even have to do ourselves, especially when we go out of the county or even when we're in county. I know when Sean finds a rare bird in Westchester, even though he has his title of eBird reviewer, he still does the right thing and he tries to document. He does a good description, all those pieces. So it's something that we always try and hammer home. And not all the time are you going to be able to get a photo or an audio. So it's really up to you to give the best intent on doing a description as possible to make our jobs easier. So when you study a bird, you should describe anything that you can make out on it, any approximate size, color, shape, comparisons to other species that might be similar. If you can age it, if you can sex it, all of those will help us to our process of confirming species. A lot of shorebirds, Baird sandpiper to be specific, you rarely see adult Baird sandpipers in fall migration. Almost never. Only a couple seemingly every year. So just off the bat, if someone says they had a Baird sandpiper with a really bad description, they called it an adult, it kind of gives some ability for us to understand what's going on. Additional detail on how you saw it. Were you looking through a scope? Were you looking through binoculars? How long? Was it a fleeting glimpse? Did you have a good look at it? Was it a no-bin situation where you didn't have binoculars? These are all things that we're going to take into account when we're doing our decision on whether something should be confirmed or if there's a lack of sufficient detail and documentation. So it's kind of a back and forth between the reviewer and the observer sometimes if we ask for a little bit more detail. And this is kind of what we expect when we get a sighting. Sean, anything to add on that?
Nope. Go to the next slide. So, I mean, we could go on with these, but these are just a couple of some things that we see, or some of you have seen if you subscribe to the Rare Bird Alerts for whatever provinces you have been subscribed for. So I'm not going to read all these. I'll just maybe cherry pick a couple of them. You can see some of them are pretty wordy here. And all those words, and especially the one on the right, that starts with undoubtedly. You read that whole thing. That's a description of a magnolia warbler. That there is no description of a magnolia warbler in that at all. All those words, and there's nothing. Photos, and then we never see the photos, and then we have to email that person asking to upload the photos. Details to follow, those details never entered. What's another one? Like photos and then never attaching the photos is a pretty popular. But again, these are just like 1%, not even 1% of some of the stuff that we see that we kind of look at and we're like, what do we do with this? And then a lot of these, like again, a magnolia warbler, a breeder in some of the Hudson Valley counties, but a pretty common migrant, pretty obvious looking. So we have to needle someone for a description on that. Maybe I think that was for a bird that was kind of lingering into the summer. But yeah.
And Sean, I always like what you say about using words and, particularly that one, just with 8 words, you could really well describe a bird, whereas sometimes you'll see people go into paragraphs of unnecessary information when it could.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. I mean, the story is, if you want to type your story on there, that's fine. But we're kind of just looking for the meat and potatoes to get the record through. So just put it somewhere if you're going to type a book. But otherwise, short and sweet is kind of to the point is what we're looking for here. Oh, and then at the bottom, I put continuing, and there's a caveat to that. So when there's a long-standing rarity, let's use Ulster County that comes to mind when the white pelican and the brown booby were on Ashokan Reservoir. Those birds were there for weeks, or the pack loon 2 years ago. Those birds were there forever. And, so like I don't really think it's necessary for folks who have seen the bird already to have to type a description every time. So for someone to put continuing for a long-standing rarity, I think that's a pretty understandable thing. And it's somewhere in the eBird. I couldn't find it on their website that it is an acceptable thing to do. So, I know a lot of people like to put continuing, but that's kind of the caveat with that. So, a couple examples of proper documentation. I just made 5 of them up of just some random birds, but you see, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. To the point.
No, I'd probably still follow up with Sean on the prothonotary word just because that's such a good bird. But yeah, these are good. These are good descriptions here.
Yeah,
So
like
even if
yeah,
even if there's something that has a pretty decent description but is a really rare bird, we will still follow up just for further detail. Just kind of want to really QA/QC something.
yeah, and like Kyle said, like going back to this slide, look at all those keystrokes. Yeah, we're done. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. So it's like it could actually be easier to describe the bird and do what you have to do or should be doing than go through all of this work, typing out whatever you're typing out.
Yep. So physical documentation. A lot of times, if you can provide something like this, you'll never hear from us. So it's hard to argue a good photo of a bird. Even a horrible photo can be used for purposes of documentation. It doesn't need to be award winning. Whatever you can do, whether it's with your cell phone, anything you could do, a digi shot, which is the top center photo there, whatever you could do to give a little bit more context with your sighting. Audio is also extremely helpful. All of our phones now are basically built in with some type of recording program where you can get an audio recording. So if you hear something weird, make sure to get your phone out and start recording instantly. I don't have Merlin, but I know Merlin's really easy at saving recordings and using those. So a lot of times we'll see eBird lists that say a Merlin recording, but there won't be an actual recording on the thing. So some type of audio that could be uploaded is huge. Birds have very specific frequencies of their calls and can be compared just on the actual graph of the audio recording. So physical documentation is honestly going to be the biggest thing for someone to put on their list without having to hear from an eBird reviewer.
This is going to be more of like a conversation kind of thing, but just we're asking everybody to kind of look at things through our eyes. If you were reviewing, you get like a rare bird alert on your phone and you look at it. Pretend you're the reviewer for a second. We don't know everybody. We know a good amount of people, but we don't know everybody. Is this person reliable? Do they have a good track record? Are they a new bird or a new bird of the area or state or the country even? Sometimes we go to the eBird profile to confirm some of this. Someone, they see 3,000 species worldwide. Odds are they're probably pretty reliable, kind of thing. So, has this rarity or this bird been documented by others? So this is a kind of an interesting one. Does this observer always have something noteworthy on their list? Now, again, this goes to, when you're cruising around eBird in the evening where you get those rare bird alerts and it's always like the same person. And we're not including, the super experienced people that you'd almost expect that from, but just some people like, oh, this person again. There is a kind of like a weird trend where there's like a correlation between like always having something rare, but also not being super experienced. So like your brain is kind of always going to that rare bucket, if you will, and always triggering alerts. So we can have a little conversation about that at the end, or if Kyle has anything to add. But that's like a kind of very nuanced, interesting topic. And then, does this person respond to emails? eBird has an automatic 14-day countdown. So you get an email from us. You have 14 days. If we don't hear back from you within that 14 days, your sighting gets automatically unconfirmed. But you could always email us back. Let's say you were out of country and just didn't get to it. Then we could always approve it and it's back in there. Or if you upload photos after the fact, like if it was one of those photos and you didn't upload photos, but then you upload photos, it gets bounced back into our queue, and then we can approve it. And then another, just again, looking at it through our eyes, think about the awkwardness when you have to email someone, the same person, numerous times for various sightings. So it kind of goes in hand with, does that observer always have something noteworthy on their list? We do see it. We do have sightings in our review queue that's like, oh, we have to email this person again. And then it's like there's 5 other sightings in the review queue from this person. And sometimes we'll do it in one big batch and rip the Band-Aid off. Other times we'll just do one month and then wait another month and do another one, kind of chip away at it. But you just understand that like there is like a little bit of awkwardness. Like we're not trying to come down on people. That's kind of like that's my piece on it. I don't know what Kyle has to add about this slide. It's kind of like a very personal slide, I guess you can say.
Yeah, I mean, to add to Sean, I mean, our job can be really tough. I mean, I hate unconfirming sightings. So you got to understand that it's not easy for us to just crack down on everything and just be the bearer of bad news, stuff like that. With that being said, we take a lot into consideration when we come up with our review process and our determinations. A lot of what is highlighted here in bullet points. And another thing to be said is, we kind of have to be fair and, have to be a level playing ground and kind of tackle every sighting the same way and not have some bias towards friends or things like that. So just, a little sympathy for, it's a tough job that we do. We try to make it fair for everyone. So hotspots are very important into eBird. A lot of us that are very familiar with eBird know how to easily use hotspots. We have found that there is ways of eBird and saving personal locations that people have a hard time tracking down on hotspots. It's something that you'll see us send emails on, even if your sightings are correct and all your species are. You'll see an email from us asking for eBird users to change their list to the correct hotspot. What hotspots are really important for is they have a central location on a specific birding patch. Call it Croton Point Park hotspot. This allows to kind of culminate and organize all of the data for Croton Point. It allows multiple birders to enter their own checklist into the location, doing cumulative species for the month, year, and all time. On this image that Sean has in front of us, you'll see these red flames, which are shown to delineate hotspots. The blue markers on the map here are personal locations that Sean has made. So when you're birding, you're looking for those red flame hotspots to pick for your location, if they are available.
And they may not be red. This is from the PC, so they're red. I know I have an Android, so I know when I do a list for my phone, the red flames are actually green flames, but the blue balloons still remain blue. I don't know if it's like that for iPhones. So this is just a brief, like how do you know if you used a hotspot? You can see the 2 circles I have there. The Croton Point Park, the bottom one, it's a hyperlink and it's blue. That means you used a hotspot. So you click that and it'll bring you to the Croton Point hotspot page. And then the one above it, that you can't click that. That is, the person was at Croton Point Park, but they did not swipe left to pick the hotspot. And what does that mean? So you see the red hotspot there, and then you see all the blue balloons. This is from this year, so it's not like a breeding bird atlas kind of situation going on. But this is all from this year, so you can see for bobolink, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 sightings of bobolink in the park, but not in the hotspot. And Kyle said it before, this isn't something that we can't flag for, or there's no catch for it. So we'll probably just like maybe your email might say like, oh, emailing you about your bobolink sighting, and just like quickly, hey, can you just move this over to the hotspot?
So I'm going to talk on this Merlin app, a blessing and a curse. So Merlin is a big topic these days in the reviewer world, birding world, every world as it relates to birds. I personally do not have the Merlin app on my phone. It might be some sort of pride thing, but I do find it to be an unbelievable application and program. And it's just really important to use it in the correct way. A lot of my friends have Merlin. Um, it's very impressive with what it can do, and I can only imagine where this app is going to be in the next 10 years. With that being said, we are it is really important to use Merlin as a tool and something that help you kind of learn about birds, but not something to rely all of your sightings on. So something that we see a lot in eBird in our review is descriptions that say confirmed by Merlin. So one thing just off the bat with that is Merlin is not perfect. Anne had me on a Sawmill presentation where I competed against Merlin in a photo quiz. Luckily, I made a couple of right calls that day that I beat Merlin, but it was a close call. I'll be honest with that. And with that being said, it showed that there were some times where Merlin was wrong. And it's really important that, if you have a bird and you're looking at it and you're not quite sure, but you have an idea, you plug it into Merlin and Merlin says something. From there, you can use some further research to kind of see is Merlin correct. You could follow up with us, send us an email, but never just put in your list that Merlin said it was this and that's what it was. Another thing that we do not like to see and would be great if people could do more is we'll see identified by Merlin, but it won't actually have the photo that they used to get Merlin's input, or it doesn't have the audio recording that was used to get Merlin's input. So while Merlin is great, we really need that further documentation and some further look into before we can confirm or deny a species just based on someone saying they identified by Merlin. So we've noticed some things with Merlin of if there's in Dutchess County, there was 1 week where an avocet hung out and a lot of people saw that bird. And that gets put into the Merlin's database so that when you're in that area, it thinks of it as a plausible species. So there's a lot of times where Merlin's kind of messed up based on geographical location. So it's really important to look into what Merlin's spitting at before you put it into eBird as a confirmed thing. Sean, anything you got on that?
No, and like if all else fails, like just use one of your local audio recording things, whether it's your microphone, even WhatsApp has like a recorder. I remember one time I was in a pinch and I think I might have like WhatsApp like Kyle and Steve like a recording of something just because like I couldn't get it to work on my phone or I got a new phone or something weird like that. But just try something. Or if you have a recording you don't know how to trim it, I don't know if Kyle said it, but in your checklist comments, just say like, at minute 3:33, you'll hear it. That way we don't have to sit there and listen for several minutes for what you may or may not have heard. Believe it or not, that has happened. We've gotten like 7-minute long recordings before with no clue on where to listen kind of thing. So that's always fun. Even outside of reviewing records, we also work on other things within the Hudson Valley as it pertains to eBird and the review process and records and stuff like that. So filters we've kind of touched on throughout this whole thing. And they are the mechanism behind the scenes that determines rarity, acceptable numbers of species, and acceptable time of year for occurrence. So for the most part, I know I see some folks from across the river on here. Sullivan, Orange, and Ulster have been pretty well adjusted thanks to John. And then Zach and I have been working on Rockland County. And then Westchester County, we're going to do something a little fun here. We're going to work with eBird to create like a sub-filter that will be able to so Westchester's unique, that we have the Long Island Sound, but we also have the Hudson River. And during migration, they'll have the same species, but arguably an American oystercatcher on the Hudson River is a lot more rare than an American oystercatcher at Marshlands Conservancy. So we can create a filter that for Westchester that would make birds common on the coast, rare on the river or inland. And so we can catch things like that, because you'd be surprised, like you type in, I remember a couple of years ago, we typed in clapper rail, and there were all these inland records, and they were all Virginia rail, or folks never got back to us, or it was nothing. So there's a lot of weird things that could be caught this way. And again, it just kind of tightens things up as far as a data quality perspective. And then something that's just going to be ever present, adjusting for climate change. Changing in breeding bird composition. Westchester County used to have golden crowned kinglet, hermit thrush, blue-headed vireo, rough grouse. Those are hermit thrush, jury's out, maybe somewhere out in the Pound Ridge area. But those birds, for the most part, are not here anymore. So that just recently, golden crowned kinglet, we changed that filter to rare for the summer. It wasn't rare at all. And it wasn't until someone ticked one by accident and I saw it. And then I kind of went down the rabbit hole there and went and changed it. Grasshopper sparrow, again, not to be too Westchester heavy, but like I said before, we've got a pretty good grasp on the other side of the river right now. And John keeps me in tune with what he's thinking and what he's doing, or I'll have to change stuff for him. But, grasshopper sparrow, that used to be a breeder of Crown Point, and everyone got tired of getting the rare bird alerts. Well, fast forward a couple of years now, that bird's not breeding there anymore, so we changed it back to rare. And we're probably just going to keep it that way, to be quite honest, because it just gets to be too much to keep changing. And then every time we change a species on the filter and we run the filter, we have to go through every subsequent, like every sighting that was already entered, we have to go through again. So think about a species like golden crowned kinglet, or when we have to do palm warbler and western palm warbler, like we're going to get thousands of sightings that we'll have to kind of sift through the best we can. So that's like, once some species are just going to get changed, and that's how they're going to stay. And you never know, like, again, not to be too Westchester heavy here, but Caspian tern, that's a pretty common migrant up in Putnam County on the river, and even further up the county, Dutchess and Ulster too. But down in Westchester, we get royal tern apparently on the river now. So what if someone photographs a royal tern and they tick it as a Caspian tern, and that's not marked as rare, and that list goes up, the photos out there, and not until 3:00 in the afternoon, someone's like, there was a royal tern at the Croton train station. We didn't know about it. So that's kind of like a unique way to use the filter as like a catch. On the opposite end, though, with some of the special owls, long-eared owl in particular, we'll have that not marked as rare. So then an RBA doesn't go out and people don't jump all over the poor bird. So we can kind of we use it in those respects. But these are just ongoing things. Like I said, we're busy people ourselves, so these things take time, and they'll be done bits and pieces. You want me to keep going with this, Kyle, or you want to do it?
Yeah. Why don't you continue on this one?
All right. So if you don't want your sightings reviewed, we totally understand if you don't want to get an email from any of us, scrutinizing a sighting. You can make your checklist not public, and therefore it won't be what it says, not public. No one can see it. And it won't show up in our review queue either. So you could just go about your merry way. Your list won't be in. You can just build your list, do whatever you want, and you won't have to hear from us anymore. Totally acceptable. And this is just a quick thing on how to show you how to do that. So, you click the little silhouette there, and you go down, you go to preferences, your data privacy, and you just check all of those boxes. And you will be invisible, practically. So we just ask that, this isn't the most important thing, but, a lot of people do put an enormous amount of time and devotion into either their county lists or their year lists. So if you're going to be someone who is finding birds and having them not public, I think just as a courtesy, it would be nice if you just hid your data from the top 100, and let the folks out there that are having their records scrutinized and reviewed and seen by everybody, kind of have that spotlight. Believe it or not, we do. There are some situations that we've encountered where that's happened, and we have had the past year. We have had one person completely booted off eBird twice, actually, because they tried to make a second account. They were posting their old photos, but saying they were of like current birds, and they did it not once. I think it was like a three-strike thing. And eBird wiped them off, and they tried to come in under an alias, and they wiped them out again. And yeah, so this kind of stuff does happen, unfortunately. And not that we want to deal with it, but it does bother people. We get emails and texts and calls about people voicing their concerns. And resources. First link is a checklist for you to the Macaulay Library. It's like a checklist for your checklist. So kind of step by step. Do you have the right date? Is it make sure it's not a nocturnal list if it's the middle of the day kind of thing. And then the second link is everything about the review process. It's and with including the reviewer's handbook in there. I mean, it is a ton of information. And then secondly, the New York State Birds Discord channel. As of today, there are 2,800 members. There's an eBird help channel, and folks from eBird do contribute from time and time again. I've seen John Garrett's name on there. ID help channel with all sorts of folks from everywhere chiming in. Migration and weather alerts, and a ton of stuff.
No, perfect. Yeah, and Sean, the only thing I was going to add to that is one thing I've noticed recently is Google AI is unbelievable right now with tips for eBird. So last week, my uncle sent me a trip report, but he must have had set it to private because I couldn't see it. And when I Googled how to set a trip report to public, it gave, Google AI gave me a whole rundown of exactly how to do it. And I've noticed that for a lot of different things related to eBird questions that I've had. Google AI really understands where to go and give you a quick little list of how to do it. So